Fast. Whew, fast. Hey, this is a trumpet lesson video on how to expand your range and flexibility with some good old-fashioned lip slurs. In this particular trumpet tutorial, these are often overlooked lip slurs, 3 lip slurs that are overlooked, and I would actually call these a stealth technique. Now, why am I coming up with this? Well, I have taught now in 2018 just barely, but over 1,500 private individual students. That's individual different students over the years. One common theme that I noticed, even amongst those who could play high C, high D, high E, and then others, of course, that had difficulty playing those notes, all these players had trouble with 3 lip slurs on the horn, from D to F, E flat to G flat, otherwise known as D sharp to F sharp, and E to G. We're not talking about the super duper high ones. We're talking about right near the top of the staff. You might want to use this to check yourself. If you have problems with those lip slurs that I just mentioned, you really need to watch the rest of this tutorial. In fact, I want you to play along with me. Use the metronome. The metronome is very critical because it will show you if you are increasing your speed or not. And of course, we do want to increase our speed cleanly. So now enjoy working along and expanding your range and flexibility. All right, here we go. This is going to be the sheet starting on D to F. So the whole thing, all the exercises here will be in first valve. And I have the trusty metronome set to 120. The quarter note equals 120. Now, in your own practice, you can do the repeats as many times as you feel like. For right now, we're not going to adhere to the repeats just for time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And you can go back and repeat this on your own if you like. Now those were half notes, then quarter notes. Now we're into eighth notes. Second line. 1, 2, 3. And again, you can go back and repeat that as many times as you wish. Now those were all slurs. The first line, the second line. Now you'll notice that there's no articulation delineation on the third line. They're all 16th notes with a big arc over all of it. And that is going to be our lip trill section. So it's not interrupted by any kind of articulation. And it's that ah-yi movement back and forth. 1, 2, 3. Or you could go back and you don't really have to tongue on the second measure. So let me just do several of them in a row. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 16th notes. Now for you advanced and pro players, you could ratchet it up one more notch, right, to 32nd notes. And this is just a bonus. That should be pretty close to 32nd notes. But for everybody else, you'll just stick with the 16th notes that we have written on the page. Let's move on to the next sheet, which would be D sharp to F sharp. Again, these are the 3 most troublesome lip slurs on the horn. And if you can really work on these and get them down, I promise things are going to be so much better all over the horn, but especially in the upper register. So now everything here will be second valve. If you happen to observe on the first sheet, everything was first valve, right?
So now everything here will be second valve. Here's the first line. The metronome has still been banging away at 120. 1, 2, 3.
Fast. Whew, fast. Hey, this is a trumpet lesson video on how to expand your range and flexibility with some good old-fashioned lip slurs. In this particular trumpet tutorial, these are often overlooked lip slurs, 3 lip slurs that are overlooked, and I would actually call these a stealth technique. Now, why am I coming up with this? Well, I have taught now in 2018 just barely, but over 1,500 private individual students. That's individual different students over the years. One common theme that I noticed, even amongst those who could play high C, high D, high E, and then others, of course, that had difficulty playing those notes, all these players had trouble with 3 lip slurs on the horn, from D to F, E flat to G flat, otherwise known as D sharp to F sharp, and E to G. We're not talking about the super duper high ones. We're talking about right near the top of the staff. You might want to use this to check yourself. If you have problems with those lip slurs that I just mentioned, you really need to watch the rest of this tutorial. In fact, I want you to play along with me. Use the metronome. The metronome is very critical because it will show you if you are increasing your speed or not. And of course, we do want to increase our speed cleanly. So now enjoy working along and expanding your range and flexibility.
All right, here we go. This is going to be the sheet starting on D to F. So the whole thing, all the exercises here will be in first valve. And I have the trusty metronome set to 120. The quarter note equals 120. Now, in your own practice, you can do the repeats as many times as you feel like. For right now, we're not going to adhere to the repeats just for time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And you can go back and repeat this on your own if you like. Now those were half notes, then quarter notes. Now we're into 8th notes. Second line. 1, 2, 3. And again, you can go back and repeat that as many times as you wish. Now those were all slurs. The first line, the second line. Now you'll notice that there's no articulation delineation on the third line. They're all 16th notes with a big arc over all of it. And that is going to be our lips trill section. So it's not interrupted by any kind of articulation. And it's that ah-yi movement back and forth. 1, 2, 3. Or you could go back and you don't really have to tongue on the second measure. So let me just do several of them in a row. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 16th notes. Now for you advanced and pro players, you could ratchet it up one more notch, right, to 32nd notes. And this is just a bonus. That should be pretty close to 32nd notes. But for everybody else, you'll just stick with the 16th notes that we have written on the page. Let's move on to the next sheet, which would be D sharp to F sharp. Again, these are the three most troublesome lip slurs on the horn. And if you can really work on these and get them down, I promise things are going to be so much better all over the horn, but especially in the upper register. So now everything here will be second valve. If you happen to observe on the first sheet, everything was first valve, right? So now everything here will be second valve. Here's the first line. The metronome has still been banging away at 120. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And there you got a couple measures of rest, and you can go back and repeat this as many times as you want. Moving on to the second line, 8th notes. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you got your two measures of rest. And the third line are good old-fashioned lip trills. And you could, I personally wouldn't break up the two measures here with the tongue, although that's the way it's written, isn't it? But personally, I would just sail on through and probably go as many times as I could in one breath. 1, 2. Oh, by the way, you notice a 2 below the exercise and a bunch of dashes, and then a 2 and a bunch of dashes. That just simply means to play everything second valve. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then for you advanced and pro players, 1, 2, 3. Should be pretty close to 30 seconds on those. Moving along to the last sheet. And this is the last one, and the highest of the three, starting on E. And I already told you the second sheet was all second valve. Well, this last sheet is going to be all open. And we still have the metronome banging away at 120. Quarter note equals 120. It's the same format, so let's go ahead and tackle this one. Starting on E to G now. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you got your rest there. Go back and repeat. And second line. 1, 2, 3. Rest a couple measures, go back and repeat. And the last line, our good friend the lip trill. 1, 2, 3. And for you advanced and pro players, the bonus round, 30-second notes. 1, 2, 3. All right.
I hope you really enjoyed working along with me on these three different lip slurs. You're going to get something out of it. I guarantee for the investment of practice time on these three lip slurs, you will see an increase in your range and a big bump up in flexibility and facility all over the horn. Keep track of your metronome progress. Give this a couple of months. Make it part of your normal routine. Leave your fantastic positive comments as to what happened to your playing down below in the review. Give this video a like. If you found value in this video, you can go over to Patreon, and I'll include a little way to do that right now. Please go over to Patreon, become a supporter, support my channel and my work and what I'm doing. I really need your help. Thank you so much. This is Kurt Thompson. You just saw the first stage of compression for brass players. What does this funky balloon got to do with the first stage of compression? Actually, if you blow it up, now we're not blowing up the balloon is not the exercise. Okay, the first stage of compression is about taking in more air via your diaphragm into your lungs and creating so much pressure on your lungs that the air almost wants to force its way up through your throat and out through your mouth. There's so much pressure there, it almost feels like the horn is kind of playing itself. And there's a lot of energy behind that. If you just look at this balloon, I mean, if I just let it go, boom, it just went way up. I mean, there was energy there in that balloon. So, I'm not an engineer and I haven't studied engines and machines and rockets and stuff like that, but I do know one thing. There is a difference between a jet engine and a propeller plane, or that type of engine, and we're talking about planes. The jet engine is based on that principle of the balloon building up so much pressure, then poof, it releases all that energy. It's quite amazing. That's what we are doing as brass players in the first stage of compression. We are filling up our lungs with so much air to the point they're not going to burst, but that air is going to explode up through our throat, out through our mouth, and into the horn. And of course, we're able to regulate it along the way. So if you don't have the first stage of compression, that extreme amount of air pressure trapped inside your body, you could have the tongue arch going decently, and you could have the last stage of compression, which is your aperture. You could have that down pretty good. You're still going to be misfiring. You're not going to be firing on all cylinders like a Lamborghini would be, or a Ferrari. So there are exercises that I have my students do to really work the first stage of compression. And the one reason I have them do that is because it's the least complicated technique. And most students, whether they're 8th graders all the way up to comeback player, old timer people that haven't played in a while, I mean, most players, regardless of level, can get and master the first stage of compression, compressing the air velocity in our body. So, and yes, we can increase the space in our lungs. Did you know that? What happens if your lungs normally stretch out this much, but through some techniques I'm going to show you, they stretch out that much? Well, now you have this complete pressure cooker inside your body with this bottled up air just waiting for the air to explode. I mean, it's quite amazing. You have to have that. And is this important in only playing high notes? No. I found having great compression from stage one, from the initial stage of compression at the diaphragm level, is really, really helpful for getting a great tone and having that effortless quality of playing in the low and middle register and the kind of lower upper register, which I would call high G, high A, high B flats, right around there. So this is really, really important to your brass playing abilities, your tone, your output, and your endurance. If you don't have compression at the first stage of compression through diaphragmatic breathing, you're going to be using these. You're going to be taxing out and juicing out your chops, and you're just not going to have a lot of endurance. You're going to be pushing the mouthpiece harder to get the results that you want. You will be able to get it temporarily, but eventually you're going to be blown out and fatigued out.
So, if you're at all interested in the first stage of compression, there's 3 stages. If you're interested in the first stage, because that is the least complicated, it's the one that everybody can do and you can learn it and you can master it quickly, um, then you might want to consider some of the courses that I do, or you might want to consider working with me privately. And that doesn't matter if you're in Zimbabwe, Russia, China, South Korea, Europe, or Tallahassee, Florida, doesn't matter. We do it via Skype or over the phone. So I have these ears. These ears are really, really good, and it's pretty amazing. I can hear someone play over the phone, and almost instantly I know what they're doing wrong. Okay, I don't even have to see you, but if I can't figure it out by hearing it, I will watch you, and I'll figure it out after that. So I hope this was helpful for you. In case I didn't emphasize this, there are 3 stages of compressing the air, and they all have to be just perfectly aligned and just mastered to get the absolute astounding sound, tone, power, accuracy, endurance, and of course the high range. You take one of them out and you got problems. Doesn't mean you can't play, it just means that you have problems and challenges. So I just introduced to you with the balloon dynamic that is the first stage of compression. And thought my camera was like, sorry about that. My stand has about 8 books on it. I got my phone here on my stand. That's what we're doing right now, and it's about ready to go kaput with all the books on there. So I better take the armors off next time. So anyway, hit me up with an email, kurt@trumpetsizzle.com. You can easily find my site. You can email me from here at YouTube or Facebook or just about anywhere, and we can talk about and go into detail about the different techniques that you actually need to be working on for the first stage of compression. You might as well be doing it because it's the easiest one to work on and the one that will give you the quickest results. The others actually give you the most potent and best results, but unfortunately they take a lot longer to master and to really get the feel of. I'm talking about tongue arch compression at the bottleneck, and I'm talking about aperture compression. So those we need to work on too, but those are not overnight successes. Usually it takes a while to get those down. So I'm going to take this off my stand before it all screws up and falls on the floor. You can see how dirty my carpet is. Ooh, there we go. So anyway, hope you found that interesting. The balloon is not an exaggeration of what we're doing at the first initial stage of compression. It really isn't. It's not. It's exactly what's going on inside our lungs. The diaphragm pulls down and it creates a lower pressure in our body. That lower pressure lets the air rush in. And the more air that can rush in, the more pressure that can be created. That's the first stage of compression. It's science, folks. Not art. Science. I'll see you in the next installment where we're going to be talking about the second stage of compression. That moment when you go, I shouldn't have taken all those days off the horn. Now, we've all had that moment. Really, we all have had that. And then as you practice and kind of get back in the groove, the great stamina and the range and endurance and your tone and accuracy and sound just seems to be a little bit out of reach as you practice every day to get back to where you were. At some point, it dawns on you that you are back, but how long was it that it took you to get to that point? And that's the ambiguous, elusive part of when you take off from this instrument. It's very unforgiving. Unforgiving, let me give you an example. I've been so busy over the last week that I wasn't able to get to the gym, my 3 or 4 days a week. So it's been 5, 6 days. I went to my same machines and workout routine thinking that I was going to be weak, not doing that well, not have a lot of energy. And because we're talking about large muscle groups, I actually felt stronger. I had a hell of a workout. That's a week off. So what's the difference in taking a week off from running, walking, working out, Zumba, yoga, hiking, whatever it is that you do? And then you get back in the groove almost right away. But on this instrument, what is the difference? I am not a doctor or a scientist, although I play one on TV. But I suspect that it's because of the extremely small, fragile, and fine muscle fibers that are right here in our face that are a lot different than the big muscle groups of our legs and our back and our shoulders and our chest and our arms. So it's very, very weird about our embouchure and the fact that uh, within 24 hours of not playing, it seems like the tone and the muscles tend to atrophy right away. You know that, right? Don't believe me? If you've been playing 3 or 4 hours a day and gigging several times a week, and you all of a sudden go to nothing for 3 days, try it. Your chops will just be like wet spaghetti. I mean, it'll just be like blah. I mean, my suspect is due to the fact that we have very, very small feather-like muscles around here, and not the huge, dense muscles of our shoulders, buttocks, legs, back, chest. And then I guess the most dense muscles are our abdomen and our calves. Those are the ones supposedly you could work out every day and they're still going to get stronger. So this tutorial here is giving you a little bit of some inside information that can only come from a guy who's been looking at this stuff for decades. And no, not 1 year, not 5 years. I've been playing longer than 5 years. I've been teaching. I've been looking at this stuff for maybe longer than some of you have been even on the planet. So I've come down to a ratio that you saw in the title, 3 to 1, 3 to 1, up to a certain point. What I figured out with my students and myself, it takes about 3 times whatever you took off to get back, up to about a month. After that, it changes. So maybe that didn't seem clear. Let's just give you an example. You're used to playing every day. You're used to practicing 2 to 3 hours a day, which is good for an advanced or professional player. Maybe you're in a rehearsal band once a week and you gig once or twice a week, or maybe once every other week. It doesn't matter, but you're used to playing a lot. You take off one complete day on your horn, and it just may take you 3 days to get back to where you were. A lot of times I do recommend that for myself and students, just to let this heal and let the muscles really get stronger and recuperate. Yes, you do have to do a graduated practice regimen for a couple days to get back to where you were, but you're going to be stronger, the way I have my students do it and the way I do it for myself. But so one day may not be the best example, but that is the ratio. One day off on the horn, and you got to take 3 days to get back to where you were. But now let's do a little bit more extreme. Let's do, you have a weekend jaunt with your girlfriend or your wife. Or if I'm talking to a female brass player, with your boyfriend or husband or partner. So you're going to be gone off the horn now for 3 days. What you're going to find is, now this is where the data really comes in. If you're used to playing a lot and your body's used to having a lot of practice, a lot of face time with the metal here, you will find that by taking 3 days off, in general, you're going to have to spend a good week to a week and a half, about 9 days, just to bring you back to where you were. So most of you don't know that, and so you get a little frustrated as you come back in a couple of days and you're going like, crap, I only took off 3 days, but I'm not even playing as good as I was last week. Oh, that's why. So you need to have that in mind. You need to go ahead and prepare for that. If this summer is winding down in about another month, but maybe you have a week-long vacation with your family. And I know that's the case with some of my students. They're telling me, I don't know how I'm going to be able to practice every day, whatnot. So I give them the suggestions on how to do it, but the fact is, a lot of times you get distracted and you don't practice. So I'm here to tell you, you take off 1 week for the family vacation and don't touch this at all. I mean, nothing, zero. You're going to spend about 2.5 to 3 weeks just to get back to where you were.
That's the sad fact, but you need to know that fact so you can prepare and just know, and that'll reduce your anxiety and frustration levels. Now, for all of us that fall into that um, parameter of a 3-to-1 ratio, you're always going to be able to cite the one exception. Uh, I remember reading, was it Roger Ingram's book, where he talks about that he traveled from, now it could be somebody other than Roger Ingram. I'm thinking Roger Ingram, but he moved from the East Coast, I believe, to the West Coast, and he wasn't able to practice. He said he did some mouthpiece buzzing or something like that. But he tells a tale about how he was off the horn for a week and started playing, and he just like, like he never fell off the horse. He no problem, no nothing. He would be the exception if I'm quoting him correctly. Most of us would not be able to go a week without playing, and then all of a sudden, you're gigging, you're playing, you're teaching, you're doing all these things, you're practicing 3-4 hours a day. Most of us can't do that. He would be the exception. It's kind of funny. Here's a little bit of trivia that I found from one of Maynard Ferguson's interview. He tells a story about how people used to be amazed and in awe and wonderment. Wow, Maynard, you just show up to the gig and all of a sudden, I want two, 3, 4, and then boom, he starts playing like, he's just killing it. And they're like, this guy is amazing. Maynard can show up on the gig and doesn't even have to warm up. Well, Maynard in one of his interviews says that he does warm up. He never just shows up to the bandstand with it, pulls his horn out of the case cold and plays. And he said his secret is he's usually warming up in the car, at least during this juncture when he was playing. He was warming up on his drive to the gig or to the rehearsal, and he was all warmed up by the time he got there. So he didn't have to play but just a note or two, and then he went for it. So even Maynard, had to make sure that he was, warmed up and playing for a gig. And I suspect that if he took off a couple of weeks, he probably would feel it, and he would have to, definitely take some time to get back to the horn. So this is a very important tutorial, mainly for strategy and mainly to reduce your stress, anxiety, and frustration. I mean, if you know in advance that if you go on that vacation or if you're without the horn for 3 or 4 days, you just have to know it's going to take you triple the amount of time to get back to where you were before you stop the horn. That's very, very important data, folks. This tutorial, although it's free, I mean, it's priceless. It's gold in your pocket now that you know that. So let's carry it to extreme. You take off 2 weeks on the horn, expect to take, a month, a month and a half, probably a month and a half to get back to where you were. You take off 3 weeks, it may very well take you 2 months to get back to right where you were. It doesn't mean that you can't play, and it doesn't mean that you can't go to some of your gigs or rehearsals. It's just you will not be firing on all cylinders like you were before you took off. I mean, 3 weeks without touching this? Hello? Man, your face is going to go to jello. I'm just here to tell you. If you don't believe it, I mean, it is. It's just going to go to jello. Now, what happens when you get to a month? Now, once we get to a month, the ratio changes. So the ratio of that 3-to-1 magic elixir does kind of stop around a month. So after a month, the ratio changes. It goes down. It might go to 2-to-1. You take off, let's just say you take off 6 weeks. It's not going to take you 18 weeks, to get back in the groove. Maybe it might take you 2 months or something like that. So this ratio is useful up until about 3 to 4 weeks of not being on the horn. And this is for all brass instruments. So you can use this ratio because most of us aren't going to take off a month. If you do that, that means something's probably gone pretty bad in your family or for your personal life. Maybe you were in an auto accident. Maybe you came down with some kind of disease or something. So something tragic or bad happened if you're taking off more than a month on the horn. For most of us, it tends to be 3 days up to about a week is very, very common. And so you can expect if you took off a week on this horn, you need 3 weeks to get back to where you were. So again, this is an important, this is absolutely gold in your pocket now that you know this. And I've known it for quite some time and have been telling my students about it.
And I thought, well, why keep it a secret? I looked around online to find out if anybody had any um, message or tutorial or data or information about this, and it seems like nobody talks about this or even knows about it. Or I'm sure people have thought about it because you're frustrated when you're off the horn and you come back and it's like your mouth is like jello and you just can't play. So there you have it. Now you know. Now you can prepare. You know, if you're going to take off 3 days on the horn, you need a week and a half or 9 days to get back. Most commonly, if you have to take off a week, 7 days, give yourself 3 weeks to really get back to where you were. It's going to take that amount of time. And the other thing is, and this is probably a topic for a different tutorial, and there is a way to get back. If you've been playing 3 hours a day and you take off for a week, you just don't come right back in on 3 hours a day. You're really going to shoot yourself in the foot. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed and really appreciated the gold that's in your pocket now from this video. You know now that when you take off the horn more than a day, times that by 3, and that's the amount of time it's going to take you to get back to where you were before you took off on the horn. Now you know. I'm Kurt Thompson. I really hope that you enjoyed another great video from my channel, Your Brass Instructor. Of course, you know you could always go to TrumpetSizzle.com and get involved in a plethora of programs that will really make the cream rise to the top in your own self and playing and your music education. And again, like I say, in some of the videos, you never have to take my word for it. There are just too many people reviewing and talking about my courses, giving an objective point of view on what happened to them after they studied with me and or went through one of my courses. It's right here on my channel, but it's also elsewhere online. So hope you enjoyed this tip and tidbit of information for all brass players, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Hey, fellow lead trumpeters, screamers out there, high note hitters. Do you notice anything a little bit unusual about my trumpet? Now, you know it's marching band season, and this video is going to be published somewhere in the at the beginning of the fall of 2017. And I know a lot of you guys and gals in high school and college are hoofing it, and you're having to push the power out on notes as low as right above the staff, all the way up to blowing out some massive high C's, D's, E's. When it comes to getting that quintessential F above high C and double G's at the end of your marching band song that you would love just to kill everybody on and shatter the glass in the press box, you can't do it. I have an instant high note range trumpet hack that will instantly propel you up that last half or whole step with power. And this is temporary. You shouldn't use this all the time because hello, don't you need to build some freaking chops? Build yourself some freaking chops, baby. Come on now. But this will get you where you want to go. You didn't catch it yet, huh? Right there. Pull this out. Oh, what's that? What are you looking at me for? Go to my other channel and watch the rest of the tutorial. Hello? 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 Don't just keep looking at me. Go watch the rest of this tutorial on my other channel, Fast Results Trumpet Courses. Hey, you're still... Come on, go. Go now. Go, go, go. Beat it. Beat it. Bye-bye. Go. Go.
Welcome to the Herbert L. Clark Etude 2 Trumpet Challenge. And this is being presented by Kurt Thompson of TrumpetSizzle.com and Your Brass Instructor on YouTube.com. You know, it's funny, I just recently did a challenge on YouTube just for fun, and purposely indicated I didn't want to be in the running. And then I've also put up several challenges before in the past, and they all have a common theme, and that's being able to play in the upper register. Unless I've missed it, I haven't seen any challenge on tone, finger dexterity, technique. And so I thought to myself, how many trumpet players from intermediate to advanced to professional are not able to do most of these challenges you see on YouTube simply because they don't have a good double G in their back pocket? And when I answered my own question, the answer was a lot. Only a fraction of trumpet players are able to play Fs, double Gs, double As, and double Cs, and most of them can't do it well. They're not really the type of players you want to hear doing it. That leaves an ultimate fraction of the entire trumpet universe that can play and sound well in the upper register. Everybody else cannot, so why not make a very interesting trumpet challenge that doesn't force somebody out of the game right away because of high range? Isn't that a good question? I think it is. Anybody who's been on my channel